Spider-Man is back with a brand new game, and my spidey senses are telling me that the world is ready for it. I'm talking Bonesaw McGraw levels of ready. So let's celebrate our favorite web-slinger's homecoming, well, his video game homecoming, by looking at what we know about his new game. I'm Jet Set with the Leaderboard, and it's time for 107 facts about Spider-Man on PS4. Marvel's Spider-Man is an upcoming title scheduled to release on September 7th, 2018, exclusively for the PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 4 Pro. So if you don't have a PS4, here's a serious FOMO warning. Spider-Man is an open-world action-adventure game being developed by Insomniac Games. Since their founding in 1994, Insomniac Games has worked on some of the most iconic video game titles: Spyro, Ratchet & Clank, Resistance, and Sunset Overdrive, just to name a few. So how exactly did this crossover come to be? Well, it was actually Sony who first approached Insomniac about working in conjunction with Marvel Studios. After Insomniac enthusiastically agreed, Marvel asked the studio what property they would like to work on. It was Insomniac Games employee Brian Intihar who first suggested they develop a Spider-Man game. As a result, Intihar was appointed as the creative director for the project. With great suggestions comes great responsibility. Prior to Spider-Man, Insomniac Games had never worked on another studio's property. Everything had been an in-house idea. The studio reports that although developing Spider-Man was challenging, the game had enough in common with their earlier titles to make for an easy transition. The upcoming PS4 exclusive was heavily inspired by classic Spider-Man issues like Amazing Fantasy No. 15, The Ultimate Spider-Man Run, and the works of Dan Slott. The Sam Raimi movies were also cited as major influences. Hopefully, Spider-Man 3 wasn't too much of an inspiration, because I don't want to see this new Spider-Man swinging around Manhattan in an emo haircut. While it is certainly inspired by all the great works that came before it, Insomniac's narrative take on Spider-Man is completely original. However, given that Spider-Man is so well known, Insomniac probably won't be venturing too far out there for this game. With that being said, the story is in good hands. It's being written by the four-man team of John Paquette, Ben Arfman, Christos Gage, and Dan Slott. Paquette and Arfman are writers at Insomniac Games, and Christos Gage and Dan Slott have written a combined total of over 700 Marvel comics, many of which star the web crawler himself. So, just to reiterate, the game is in good hands. According to John Paquette, the script is approximately the same length as a 3,333-page novel. It looks like Insomniac Games has posed an interesting question: why choose quality over quantity when you can have both? On top of its dynamic team of writers, Insomniac has also worked closely with Marvel's executive creative director Bill Rosen, who suggested that the best Spider-Man stories are the ones where the worlds of Peter Parker and Spider-Man collide. Insomniac Games has reportedly put in a lot of effort to showcase and preserve one of Spider-Man's most important and iconic characteristics: his sense of humor. Christos Gage has confirmed that Spidey is full of quips, explaining that compared to comics, video games allow for infinitely more one-liners. Gage speculates that he dreamed up about 1,000 one-liners for Spider-Man throughout development. I imagine a decent chunk of those got cut from the final game, but I'm sure some of them will stick. Boom-ch. Roseman also stressed the importance of making Spider-Man and Peter Parker feel distinct. Spider-Man is heroic and confident, while Peter Parker is timid and unassuming. You would never mistake one for the other. All in all, the game only takes place over the course of a few weeks in October. To subtly mark the passage of time in the progression of the story, Peter and other characters will continually change clothes. By now, nearly everyone knows Spider-Man's origin story, and let's face it, we're all kind of tired of hearing of it. But good news! Insomniac Games has assured everyone that Peter Parker's origin story isn't part of the upcoming game. In fact, it's ancient history. In Marvel's Spider-Man for PS4, Peter Parker is 23 years old and has been the web-slinger for 8 years. As such, we won't have to worry about slowly progressing through the game in order to unlock a competent Spider-Man. Right from the get-go, Spider-Man already does whatever a spider can, spinning webs any size and catching villains just like flies. According to Insomniac, this new version of Spider-Man won't be connected to the MCU. He will instead be integrated into the comic book universe as part of the upcoming Spider-Geddon event, which serves as a follow-up to 2014's Spider-Verse, the very same from the upcoming movie Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. The Spider-Geddon storyline is written by Christos Gage, whose name should sound familiar. Gage noted that Spider-Geddon takes place after the events of the game, so if you're only going to check out the comic, be sure to finish the game first. The first issue, Spider-Geddon 0, has a release date of September 26, 2018. Now, before we talk about Spidey's allies and enemies enemies featured in the new game, we have to mention the most important character of all, New York City. That's right, Insomniac treated NYC as its very own character. Each of the city's neighborhoods have their personality and feel, making them easily identifiable. To be as true to NYC as possible, the Insomniac team even hired real-life graffiti artists to create the in-game wall paintings. Because it's New York, the game will also feature dynamic citizens. Did you expect anything less? Because Spider-Man is already an established hero in this game, citizens of New York will react appropriately as he swings around the city. They'll take selfies, high-five, or even just wave at him as he zips across the skyline. True to the comics and real life, NYC has a love-hate relationship with Spider-Man. While some citizens will be itching to give him a big hug, others will try to stick the New York native web-slinger behind bars. While the game is an open world, it isn't like Grand Theft Auto. No matter how annoyed you get at the people who hate you, you can't just go around punching them. Spider-Man is a hero after all. In real life, Manhattan may only be 22 miles, but on the PS4, it's unimaginably gigantic. Spider-Man's version of New York City is 4 to 6 times the size of Sunset Overdrive, Insomniac Games' previous foray into open-world games. The best news is that all of the city will be available from the start of the game. You won't need to progress in the story in order to unlock certain parts of New York. I think we should all take a moment to breathe a sigh of relief together. One look at the game's footage and you might notice something new. SpiderMan Suit! I could try to verbally describe all the changes, but it's probably just easier to compare these two pictures side by side. So here you go. The spider suit in the game has officially, and canonically in Marvel Comics, been dubbed the Advanced Suit. The Advanced Suit is inspired by athletic gear, with the red parts being actually made of armored panels. The suit is stronger in those places because it's where Spider-Man usually gets attacked. On the flip side, the blue pieces are made of a more flexible material, providing Spidey the range of motion needed to perform these impossible gymnastic maneuvers. You may notice that Spidey's classic boots are gone too. That's primarily because the design team at Insomniac thought a 23-year-old superhero would prefer more of an advanced sports shoe to a clunky boot. Even though this Spider-Man isn't a part of the MCU, he does have one thing distinctly in common with the Tom Holland version: expressive eyes. Just like our silver screen Spider-Man, Insomniac Spidey will have eyes that move in emotionally expressive ways, at least while he's wearing the advanced suit. Since Spider-Man is already 8 years into his gig, designing him proved to be fairly tricky for Insomniac. Early designs for Spider-Man had him much thinner and lankier. The design team, however, didn't think he looked mature enough. To fix it, they bulked Spider-Man way up and consequently made him look like a linebacker, far too large to aerobically swing through the concrete jungle. They finally settled on a sort of fighter's build, with Spider-Man looking both athletic and experienced. The white coloring has been added to Spidey's suit for a specific narrative reason that hasn't been revealed at the time of our recording this, and even if it had, we probably wouldn't spoil it. If you're hoping the white is related to the symbiote, I wouldn't hold your breath. It's actually a flexible carbon fiber and the strongest part of his suit. That's why you can see it on Spider-Man's chest, knuckles, and feet, the areas that need to be able to take the most impact. In fact, there's a good chance that the symbiote won't appear in the game at all. During Sony's E3 2018 press conference, we got our first look at the dastardly Sinister Six. Surprisingly, Venom wasn't there. Many fans were shocked, as the symbiote has usually been a mainstay of the villainous syndicate. Since 5 Sinister members were shown in the footage, it is reasonable to think that Venom could still make an appearance. Unfortunately, Insomniac Games has confirmed that Venom will not be featured in the game. According to the game's art director, Venom was simply too big to fit in a game already chock full of fan-favorite villains. Speaking of fan-favorite villains, so far we know of at least 11 villains who are slated to appear in at least some capacity. Of these 11, some are immediately recognizable to even the newest Spider-Man fan, while some are a bit more obscure. Let's quickly do a basic rundown. Mr. Negative, aka Martin Lee, was one of the first villains revealed by Insomniac Games. Due to the early reveal, it was theorized that he would be the game's one main antagonist. However, we've since learned that this isn't the case. Don't worry, Mr. Negative fans, he's still going to play a prominent role. As far as the pantheon of Spider-Man villains goes, Mr. Negative is fairly new to the scene. His first debut came only 10 years ago as part of the Brand New Day storyline in The Amazing Spider-Man 546 by Dan Slott and Phil Jimenez. Rounding out the rest of the Sinister Six are Electro, Scorpion, Vulture, Rhino, and one mystery character. If you haven't heard of these incredibly iconic and quintessential Spider-Man villains, I suggest you spend some time hitting the comic books. We've only got 80 facts left, and with their elaborate story in Spider-Man lore, these guys could easily fill out 107 facts on their own. Insomniac Games has been impressively tight-lipped about the unknown sixth member, but keen-eared internet detectives have begun to speculate. In an E3 video, Chris J. Alex, who plays the role of Rhino in the game, spoke with Call of Duty YouTuber Drifter and briefly mentioned Dr. Octopus. It didn't seem like he misspoke either, as Alex brought up the villain when discussing an in-game fight scene. Next up is Herman Schultz, better known as Shocker. Making his first debut back in March 1967 in The Amazing Spider-Man 46, Shocker has regularly appeared in Spider-Man media ever since. Shocker's big claim to fame are his gauntlets and his handheld vibro-shock units that deliver powerful and often deadly volts of electricity. You can probably tell why they call him the Shocker. In some comic runs, Shocker has even appeared as a member of the Sinister Six. Still, we don't have enough evidence to tell if he'll be part of the villainous crew this time. Felicia Black Cat Hardy has also been confirmed to appear in the game. Technically speaking, Black Cat isn't exactly a villain, but she also isn't necessarily a hero. Throughout her storied history with Spider-Man, she's appeared as everything from an enemy to ally to even a love interest, sometimes all three. Black Cat's Lucky Cats are hidden throughout the environment, and players need to collect them to unravel her in-game story. Details are scarce at the moment, but one thing is for sure. Black Cat is working on something big. In fact, Insomniac Games has already confirmed that Black Cat will be featured in the game's DLC. We'll also get to see another complex member of the Spider-Man universe, Silver Sable, aka Silver Sublinova. In the comics, Silver Sable is a mercenary who hunts war criminals, and as such, he's acted as both Spider-Man's ally and antagonist. In Marvel Spider-Man, Silver Sable has been hired to hunt down the friendly neighborhood hero, suggesting that she will play a pivotal role in the plot. Marvel Games' Bill Rosen has teased that Silver Sable's opinion of Spider-Man will evolve over the course of the game. The real takeaway of this news is that we probably won't have to deal with one-dimensional villains. Speaking of Silver Sable's job, we should probably mention her employer. Naturally, it's Norman Osborn, Green Goblin himself. So far, Osborn has only been seen in one clip and not in his Goblin getup. As far as the plot is concerned, Osborn is the mayor of New York. It's also been confirmed that Norman Osborn is up for re-election and has hired Silver Sable and her team in a desperate attempt to rid the city of vigilantes. One of these vigilantes, of course, being Spider-Man, whom Osborn declares an enemy of the people. Remember when I mentioned how some New Yorkers won't like you? Yeah, you can thank Norman for that. Despite all that information, one big question still remains. Is this version of Osborn the Green Goblin? And if it is, does anyone know his secret identity? Taskmaster has also been confirmed to make an appearance. If you want to get really technical, Taskmaster is not a Spider-Man villain, but rather an Avengers villain. Regardless, he's a bad dude who has a history with Spider-Man. Taskmaster has left communication devices around the city that prompt skill challenges for Spider-Man to complete. In one demo, players had to locate a ticking bomb, throw said bomb into the air, and then fire webs at it to contain the explosion. The more webs shot at the bomb, the more points received for the mission rating. Taskmaster, however, never showed his face, only hiding in the shadows. For this reason, it's unknown whether he'll appear physically in the game. Last but certainly not least is Wilson Fisk, one of the first villains to be revealed alongside Mr. Negative. Kingpin made his first appearance way back in July 1967 in The Amazing Spider-Man 50. Mild spoilers, but Kingpin won't be in the game for very long. In fact, Marvel Spider-Man starts with our hero foiling Kingpin's plans and locking the mobster behind bars. Although Kingpin isn't around, his influence will still be felt in Manhattan. These are a set of side missions where Spider-Man can infiltrate and take down Kingpin hideouts throughout the city. With some of these villains existing through over 50 years of Spider-Man comics, Insomniac wanted to modernize their designs. For example, paying homage to Electro's signature star-shaped mask, which, let's face it, looks kind of ridiculous, Insomniac gave the electric villain a scar in the shape of the mask. Additionally, the superpowers were modernized as well. For example, instead of having magically mutated Rhino skin, Rhino stomps around in an oversized exoskeleton. We briefly touched on Spider-Man Suit before, but that's not the only costume that Peter Parker can wear while fighting crime. One of the coolest features of the game is that players can wear different Spider-Man costumes, all of which have their own unique perks. During an interview with Game Informer, Brian Intihar showed an image with 24 indiscernible silhouettes representing different unlockable suits. And it only gets better because Intihar said that there's more than 24 suits. He didn't give an exact number, but he said there's a lot of them. As expected, many of these unlockable suits will be inspired by the comics and movies. Some, however, are entirely original and exclusive to the game. As mentioned earlier, each suit has its own powers and capabilities. For example, while wearing the Spider punk suit, Spider-Man can pull out a guitar, using it as a musical tool of justice. While some of the villains have been modernized, all of Spidey's classic suits will stay true to their original designs. Intihar and the team wanted to properly respect and pay tribute to Spider-Man's previous designers by not changing the suits. And if that wasn't enough, more is on the way. Insomniac will continue to add suits with each DLC pack released. Insomniac is dedicated to getting web swinging right, so much so that it was literally the first thing they worked on when starting development. For those who don't know, there's a long and rocky history of Spider-Man games and web swinging mechanics. Back in 2004, a video game tie-in for Spider-Man 2 was released. It was way ahead of its time, featuring excellent web swinging physics. Newer Spider-Man games have been trying to measure up ever since. Needless to say, it's been a rough 14 years. But the wait may finally be over. Just like in Spider-Man 2, webs stick to buildings. Intihar and the Insomniac crew knew that this was critical to winning over longtime fans. On top of web swinging, Marvel's Spider-Man also features a movement system that allows players to run along walls, zip along buildings, and even run up fire escapes. And when players aren't oogling at the physics of Spider-Man swings, they'll be treated to some special Marvel Easter eggs around the city. The Avengers Tower, the Sanctum Sanctorum, and the Wakandan Embassy are just a couple of the buildings players can encounter while zipping along. In addition to the building cameos, there are even more subtle hints to Marvel properties sprinkled throughout the game. Newspapers have real estate advertisements for a property that shares the same address as the Avengers Mansion, and there's even a reference to Matthew Murdock, aka Daredevil's law firm. Despite containing evidence for a ton of other Marvel characters, this version of New York won't include any sign of the Fantastic Four. Brian Intihar has made it clear that the Baxter Building, the Fantastic Four's headquarters, will not be present in the game. The game takes place in 2018, 8 years after Peter got his powers. You can even see a poster in his bedroom detailing his wrestling debut as Spider-Man. The poster is dated August 2010, and he participated in that wrestling match shortly after getting his powers. 8 years later is 2018. While there are plenty of amazing villains in the game, every hero has their allies. In Marvel Spider-Man, Peter Parker will have two very powerful allies, Miles Morales and Mary Jane Watson. These two aren't just your dinky little sidekicks either. Mary Jane Watson will be a playable character. While it hasn't been revealed how the MJ missions will play out, Intihar has hinted at MJ working as an investigative reporter for the Daily Bugle. On the other hand, Insomniac has yet to reveal if we can play as Miles Morales. With an appearance and possible playability in the upcoming game, and Into the Spider-Verse releasing a couple of months later, 2018 is shaping up to be quite the year for Miles Morales. Since the game takes place 8 years into Peter Parker's adventures as Spider-Man, there's going to be quite a bit of history to cover before swinging into the game. Lucky for us, Titan Books is working on a prequel novel to give more backstory to Spider-Man and lead us into the beginning of Insomniac's new game. The novel is titled Spider-Man: Hostile Takeover, and will focus on Wilson Fisk's role as Kingpin and his iron grip on New York City. The novel will also feature Shocker and Mary Jane Watson, which makes sense since we know they're in the game. Interesting enough, it also mentions Echo the Blood Spider and J. Jonah Jameson. This suggests that they may all have a role in the game as well. New Game Plus might also be on the horizon. Insomniac Games hasn't officially ruled it out as part of the game, even acknowledging that it would be a cool feature. Fingers crossed. Even if New Game Plus never comes, the game doesn't have to end when the credits roll. Insomniac has already revealed that both Spider-Man's PS4 Collector's Edition and Digital Deluxe Edition will come with 3 extra levels as part of the City That Never Sleeps add-on DLC. According to Insomniac, each DLC release for the game will include a villain, a new storyline, and as previously mentioned, the first DLC has been dubbed The Heist and will involve Black Cat and an NYC bank. Sony featured Tombstone, another classic villain, in issue 2 of the Daily Bugle. In the article, journalist Betty Brandt warns about the dangers of a new street drug known as grave dust. Following the trend of games nowadays, Spider-Man PS4 will have a photo mode. Even more importantly, Spider-Man PS4 will have a selfie mode, which I'm sure will lead to all kinds of wonderful memes. In combat, Spider-Man is given a focus bar. As he fights, the bar fills up and can be used to execute powerful attacks or even just regain health. There's a skill point-based progression system in the game that will allow players to unlock more attacks and movement abilities. The progression is at your discretion, so you can prioritize movement or combat as necessary. Insomniac put in subtle touches here and there to make the game distinctly feel like it belongs in Spider-Man's multiverse. Art director Jacinda Crew referenced hundreds of Spider-Man comics to make sure everything, even the plants in Peter Parker's apartment, feel right. As you might expect, pre-ordering Spider-Man comes with some bonuses. By pre-ordering, you'll receive early access to 3 alternative Spidey suits, extra skill points, the Spider Drone gadget, and a PS4 theme and avatar. These 3 suits are the Spider-Punk costume, the Iron Spider from Avengers Infinity War, and the Velocity suit. That said, the Spider-Punk, Iron Spider, and Velocity suit costumes are unlockable regardless of whether you pre-order Spider-Man or not. If you pre-order the game, you'll just have access to the suits immediately instead of unlocking them later in the game. Sony revealed a limited edition Spider-Man 1TB PS4 Pro bundle, which will release alongside the game in September. The console is Spider Red and features the white spider emblem from the advanced suit design. A matching red and white controller is included in the bundle, along with a copy of the game and a code for the City That Never Sleeps DLC. Unfortunately for PS Pro users, Insomniac Games has confirmed that the game will run at 30 FPS across all systems. Fans seem to be loving the Spider-Man PS4 special, and I don't blame them. It's beautiful. Despite being limited edition, the PS4 bundle hasn't sold out yet. That doesn't matter though, because certain consoles are already selling on eBay for nearly double the original cost. Insomniac is working very closely with Marvel. Literally, the Insomniac office is only 10 minutes away from Marvel Games office, and the two teams regularly meet to discuss all things Spidey. Since this is an Insomniac game, Spider-Man will have all sorts of gadgets at his disposal, all of which are upgradable. In stealth scenarios, Spider-Man can place a tripwire on a wall. When an enemy walks by, the tripwire shoots out a web toward the wall and wraps them in a silky prison. If stealthing isn't your thing, you can attach the tripwire to an enemy in combat. When that enemy walks by someone else, the two will be slammed together. Beyond that, the tripwire also serves a critically important role for Spidey. As we know, Spider-Man doesn't kill. So if you're fighting someone on a roof and you happen to knock them off a building, Spider-Man automatically attaches and activates a tripwire. Instead of smacking the pavement, they smack the wall instead. Luckily, using the tripwire won't delete your web supply, so you don't have to be cautious about knocking enemies off buildings. Another gadget is the web bomb, which does almost exactly what the name implies. In combat, Spider-Man can lob one out, and once it hits the ground, it elevates, explodes, and sends out webs in every direction. The web bomb is mostly intended for crowd control. Since it webs up enemies nearby, Spider-Man can swoop in and punch them while they're locked in place. Like any good CC device, upgrading the web bomb will increase its holding time and capacity. Another device, the Spider Drone, is, spoiler alert, a drone. Spidey isn't too creative with his gadget names, but that's alright. In combat, Spider-Man can throw a spider drone up in the air, which will then float above enemies and shoot out webs like a machine gun. That might sound similar to the web bomb, but the main perk of the drone is that it can act as a distraction while you're trying to stealth. Since this is an open world game, there are more than just the story missions to complete. Side quests will be abundant in Marvel's Spider-Man, and while we already have talked about a couple relating to the villains, there are many, many more. After all, it is New York City, home of store robberies, car chases, drug deals, and shootouts for Spider-Man to stop. These general crimes are also constantly changing and growing more complicated as you progress through the game. For instance, if a gang member gets away during a robbery mission, the quest might evolve into a car chase as you try to catch him. There are even side quests from the one and only Harry Osborn. Harry is in Europe during the events of the game, but before leaving, he asks Peter Parker to check in on some mobile research stations throughout the city. And lastly, you can find and collect Peter Parker's hidden backpacks. But these aren't just collectibles for the sake of collectibles. They serve an actual purpose. By collecting these backpacks, players will get to hear some more backstory about this new world of Spider-Man. For example, after retrieving a certain backpack in the city, players will learn the story of Peter's first web shooters. That may sound like a ton of optional quests, but it's not even scratching the surface. According to Intihar, there will be even more side missions available in the final version of the game. I'm Jetset, and thanks for watching 107 Facts about the upcoming Spider-Man game. How excited are you for this one? Also, why not swing over to our God of War timeline video to learn more about everyone's friendly neighborhood Spartan man Kratos? And if you like getting more from your games, subscribe to the Leaderboard, your home for video game facts.